Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad AmirulHarith bin Zaini and my matrix number is 1201254. So today I will present to you some of introduction and some of archaic words that we founded at Malay text on prayer and marriage scribed by Dul Jabbar. So, okay, among the Malay manuscripts in the British Library, which have recently been digitized, there is only one which was definitely written in Batavia, which in Indonesia, but it is probably an excellent example of the type of work used for Islamic instruction in the city. Information of the author. Actually, this manuscript was owned by Mr. Alperes, lived in Kampung Selemba in Batavia, Indonesia. This manuscript was scribed by a guy that introduces himself as Dul Jabbar, who had come to Batavia from Cirebon. This manuscript have not too much information about the author since it was scribed. We go to another slide. There is some notes that written in the manuscript that I will read it. This is the book of Samarkandi, belonging to Mr. Alperes, who lives in Kampung Salemba. This book was written by Mr. Dul Jabbar from Cirebon, who came to Batavia when he was very young and who learned to write from Mr. Alperes. I was set to write all sorts of things, and I wrote them to the very best of my ability, fearful of being accused of refusing or being lazy. And so this is the result. But my humble apologies are offered to those gentlemen who will read it, because the writing is like chicken scratching, or which means in Malay we call as cakar ayam. There is also some links that you can find this note under the words.
Okay, next we proceed to description of manuscript. Firstly, about the identification. This section provides introductory remarks on a manuscript in terms of its location, identification, and holding. This manuscript, entitled Malay Text of Prayer and Marriage, and it is held by British Library, and in fact, it is a copy of Bayan Akidah al-Usul, elucidation of the fundamentals of faith, also known as Masail, and it had been composed at Kampung Selemba by 18th century. The structure of this manuscript is, it is made in the form of a book from European paper, which it measures of each page is 27 width and 21 length centimeter. Its writing material, as it written on paper, are dash paper and watermark LVG with chain line shadows. However, it is unfortunate that this manuscript is in poor condition and the order is in disarray. Every page consists of 11 lines with strong black ink with rubrication, and there are some writings that use red ink, which means to show things that are considered as important. Okay, the history of this manuscript. It contributes by the British Library, precisely in the Indian Office Library Station. And the telephone affairs of the manuscript referred to M.C. Reclefs and P. Borhuwood, as detached from I.O. Islamic 2906, from which MSS Malay C7 was extracted. Then we continue to its scribes. This manuscript, namely Malay and Arabic writing, and it's a literary work in the form of book literature because it deals with the teachings of the Islamic religion. There were several errors due to typos, including 2 additions, 7 substitutions, 2 lacunae, and 1 transposition. And words that have been used have been influenced by the Arabic language, and the style of language is the style of parsing, the style of repetition, the style of affirmations, the style of polysyndeton, and the style of asyndeton.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nurul Nabilah Husna, Binti Ahmad, holding metric number 1201332. It is my turn to present the analysis of Arabic words contained in this manuscript entitled Malay Text on Prayer and Marriage. The Arabic words sometimes appear only once or multiple times in two forms, that is, original Arabic and the long words. Let's see, at the beginning of text, the Arabic terms have been used in greetings or salutations, such as Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin, wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. In the text prayer, the Arabic words are used to state the pillar of prayers. For example, niyah, takbir, ruku', sujud, tahiyah, and salam. Then, it used to state the main prayer, fard, like subuh, zuhur, asar, maghrib, and isha, that contain certain number of rak'ah. Other than that, the Arabic word in this text also mention the funeral prayer and things related to it, such as mayat, niyah, dua, and kubur. Furthermore, there are a few of Arabic terms regarding to the God character and his obligatory attributes, such as ta'ala, wujud, and wahdaniyah. This text has the names of Prophet include Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Nabi Adam alaihi salam, Nabiullah Ibrahim, Ismail, Nabiullah Yunus, and Nabiullah Isa. Also stated in text about Malaikah and their roles. Next, in the text of marriage, nikah, the use of Arabic words first to examine the regulations, include sah, batal, wajib, sunat, makruh, and haram. Second, to state the pillars of marriage such as ijab qabul, wali, and akad. Third, to mention the concept of giving in marriage, which is mahar and nafkah. Fourth, to discuss the sexual behaviors such as zina and wati. And the last, to explain about divorce, tolak, and how it relates to Ezzah. Okay, that's all from me.
Okay, we proceed to the archaic words that can be found. First, diwati, which means had intercourse. Next, diri, which is stand up. Next, sanatnya, which means descent. Next, syahdan, or we call as profession of faith in Islam. In 5 Islamic pillars, there's the first one is shahada, and the last one is randa, which mean widow. So that's all for my part. Proceed to my friends.
Next, we will proceed to the next chapter, which is the review of the manuscript entitled Malay Text on Prayer and Marriage. At the beginning, the reward for those who perform the prayer is explained by the author. Every act of prayer from the beginning, sujud, ruku, recite al-Fatihah, contains a reward, also shows devotion to Allah. Next, the story behind the number of rak'ah every 5 prayer times is also explained. For example, the Maghrib prayer is 3 rak'ah as a hope Allah to relieve the difficulties of Prophet Ezzah on 3 things. Among the things is Allah set his heart and his people in worshipping Allah. The second is the decree of the mother of Ezzah to worshipping Allah. The third is the determination to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There is none other thing but Allah. In short, in the first chapter also tests the position of the 5-time prayer in the Quran that come from the word Alhamdu. The chapter continues with the section of the funeral prayers. The author stated the manner of intending during the funeral prayer, either to the imam or the makmum, and explain how to intend during the funeral prayers of a male, female, boy or girl. Next, about the funeral prayer procedure, the position of the imam, makmum when performing the prayer, as well as the words that must be recited in the funeral prayer. Finally, the author explained briefly about the pillars of the funeral prayers. Next, turning to the next topic is the marriage chapter. The marriage chapter begins with the marriage sermon, the words ijab and qabul, which is needed to be said along with the dowry, the condition required to be witnessed in the marriage, and the author also explicated when the marriage can be a permissible or forbidden thing. Next, the author also lists the illegal things done by men or women regarding finding a partner. For example, looking at the candidate marriage partner without no interest to next level. Among the permissible limits are only the face and the palms. In the matter of marriage, candidate spouses, that although the author explains that they should pay attention to the lineage of the candidate as well. If the marriage takes place, there must be a wali and two fair witnesses. The author also lists explicitly authorized wali in clear order. Besides, the author also stated it is haram to marry a woman who is still in state of iddah, whether this woman is divorced, alive, or divorced dead with the previous partner. In addition, the author states that those who are illegally married, for instance, mother-in-law and others. In addition, the author also states the condition of women during menstruation and things that forbidden to do. And lastly, the dowry in the contract. For example, the value of the dowry should not be too low. Generally, the dowry place must be in average to its value. The most important, neither more nor less. Basically, the author managed to explain the prayer chapter and the marriage chapter well. Although in the prayer chapter, only the funeral prayer is mentioned, that is sufficient things because the funeral prayer is a kifayah obligation and also important to understand. As a reader, the content of each chapter that has been read and studied makes it easier for the reader to understand better to the input that the author wants to convey. In fact, every language that the author has been used is not complicated. Only a handful of languages require discussion to understand the real meaning.